So I think it helps to turn the microphone pack on. Probably a good thing. Yep, that definitely helped a lot. So anyway, it doesn't matter how many times. This is my 80th episode, and it doesn't matter how many times I've done this. I still, for whatever reason, tend to screw up something. I'm going. And here comes the rain. That's okay. I got my yard cut yesterday, so rain now I'm okay with. Anyway, howdy, welcome. It's Wednesday. What is today? The 22nd of October, and today is, I think, officially, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere, today is the first official day of autumn, or fall, or whatever you like to call it. So I think hopefully, the slightly cooler temps, and autumn is one of my favorite seasons, at least here in Northern Virginia. We get amazing tree colorations and such, our leaves change and such, and we get some really, really beautiful weather in the fall. It never seems to last particularly long. I think fall, to me, seems like one of the shortest seasons. I mean, we go from super hot to cold, and we get that medium zone where you wish that would last for like 3 months of 60 to 70s, but it doesn't seem to last that long. I'm not sure why, except for the fact that I don't know that these seasons are equally divided. It seems like winter and summer are really long, and then spring and fall are kind of short. So that's just the way it feels to me. But it is one of the reasons I do enjoy living in this particular part of the world, is that we do get all 4 seasons. I know there are locations where they really don't. Like if you live in Florida, especially further down in the Florida panhandle, Tampa, Orlando, on down towards Miami and such, you really don't get anything but mostly summer. Your winter consists of a few 60-degree days when everybody runs and grabs a heavy parka because they're freezing to death. But for the most part, it doesn't get that cold. You don't get those seasonal changes, and I really love the seasons. In fact, for me, like I said, some of the most beautiful times of the year are the spring and the fall in this area. Our summers they can be hot and humid, not too pleasant, but they're not unbearable. And our winters, while we do get some we get some snow, and we get some inclement weather and such, but they're not on average too freezing cold. We don't get down below freezing for a high very often. We do get low, but not that low, and it's not very often. But we do get snow, which is one thing I really like because I love snow. So we do get some snow, not a ton, but we do get some. And like I said, that's one of the things I really like about living in this area, is I get to experience all 4 seasons. And yeah, so to me, that's kind of nice. All right. I have been working on fixing these bases. The last, I think on Monday, I had, excuse me. Well, I got up early this morning. For some reason, I couldn't go back to sleep, and so I've been up for a while. I've already had a couple of cups of coffee, but not quite on track yet. So hopefully before I start working with power tools, I'll be fully awake. Last time, to catch up anybody who's not been watching, when I created these bases right here, I made a major boo-boo. How everybody says, oh, you need to measure twice and cut once. And that was not really my issue. So I had measured twice. My measurements were spot on, exactly what I had said they should be. The problem is I was using the wrong measurement. So everything was wider than it should be. These middle sections, these boards right here, should have been cut to 8 1/8 inches long, this way. I cut them to 8 5/8 inches. I have no idea why I added a half an inch to everything, but I did. Now, thankfully, I did not add it to the length of these things because that would have just been a point of no return on these. And I already thought I was at that point of no return, but I think I came up with a pretty good solution to fix that. But yeah, I have no idea why that half inch. I don't know where that came from because I've made like 100 of these things and it's always 8 1/8. And for whatever reason, 8 5/8 just got stuck in my head and I just cut everything to 8 5/8. And had I caught it a little earlier before I glued the bottoms of these in, because they have bottoms that are glued in, if I had caught it before I glued these bottoms in, I could have probably fixed it. I could have done some creative sawing to cut into the areas here and removed the sides, readjusted the size of these pieces, and then re-glued them back together. But since I already had the bottoms glued in, it was too late for that. So I came up with a fix. And that fix, let me show you this one right now, because this one's in process. It's not there yet. But what I came up with, because here's the thing, I've got a dado on, especially on most of them, that look like, stop it, look like this. So they've got a dado in this section right here. Let me just get you on this camera. So there's a dado right here, slot that runs on both sides. That allows me to take a board right like this and insert it into that dado slot. Hopefully this is the side that will insert here. Get this in here. So I'm not going to put it all the way in, but this will insert into the dado slot and create a secondary compartment on the side here. This is just a little side compartment. And then the main compartment where on this side I will be putting a sewing machine in here. And so the dado really needs to stay intact. I can't do a whole lot with it. So this board can stay that 8 5/8 inches. That's fine. What I ended up doing though, because that half inch I added to the width of these pieces, that half inch got added to the interior of this space. So the whole thing, go this way. The whole thing here is a half an inch too wide, wider than it should be. So what I came up with was this. So these are pieces of the same material. This is cherry, and this is a cherry base. And what I did was I cut these to fit inside in the walls here. So they should be an exact fit right here. And then these will get glued in, and then they will get shaved down to the same height as the existing wall. And that will add, that 1/4 inch on front and back will add that half inch back in to, or subtract that half inch, however you want to look at it. It'll give me back that half inch and make everything fit in here the way it's supposed to. So that's the way I'm going to do it. Now on here, I did the same thing on this side. This actually gets a route in here. It'll be a rabbit route going around the top to create a groove where I will put a flush lid on this section. So the lid will actually set flush with the rest of it. So this area on the top here will actually, because it's a 1/4 inch rabbet bit, these little walls that I added in here will get knocked down by the rabbeting bit so you won't even see these parts. These you will see. So I had to get kind of, to the point where I'm trying to match wood to get similar values. So this one's already done. I'll show you this one. This one is a walnut base that I did that to. So you can see those dados right here, but you can see just barely where I added this piece in. Now this has been firmly glued in here. And then what I did, let's see if I can get it like this way, so you can see that not only was it glued, but I then took my hand plane and I lowered this down to the point where it is flush with the side here. And hopefully what it gives me is a pretty nice looking fix for my problem. Now on this particular base, on the walnut one, it gets stained, not stained, actually this gets oiled. But the oil, it's a dark walnut Danish oil, and it's pretty dark in terms of color. So I don't even know that you'll see this unless you look closely. You won't even see that addition. The cherry as well, like this one, is going to get a dark stain. So I'm hoping that the dark stain kind of, it doesn't necessarily hide it, but it doesn't highlight those differences in the wood. Where I might have an issue is with this over here. So this box right here is one of the hickory bases. It's in clamps right now, and it can come out of the clamps. That's what we're going to do next. But the hickory was kind of weird because it has a lot of, I don't want to call them grain imperfections. There's just a lot of features to those bases because of that wood species that's in there. There's a lot of little teeny, like, here, let me show you this one right here. So you can see, look at all the different splotches of coloration, and not that's wood burn, but you can see that there's all kinds of like things going on in this wood. So it's not going to match up perfectly. Like, look at the edge here. So there's all this little stuff in here that's just kind of in hickory. I mean, you can't really do anything about it. But anyway, I've cut all of the pieces. All of those thin pieces have now been cut. So I went to my raw wood supplies that I picked up last week, and I milled up, what did I get? All the boards. So I've done the hickory boards, the cherry, the walnut. Actually, I think the walnut, I had some scrap that I used, but also some white oak. So I've made all of the pieces that look kind of like this. They're thin, they're long. Now this one's just left over, but they are all in the process of being glued up now. That is a very long process, because I will bring this over to the table now so you can see, and it's really, really stinking heavy. Oh, good gosh. So this, so you get you an overhead here. Look at all the clamps on there. That is a lot of clamps, right? But I kind of need all these clamps because I have to make sure that the seam, that glue seam between the thin strip of wood I'm putting in there and the existing side is as tight as possible, so that when I go down to lower that flush, that you almost see no glue line at all. So that's kind of what I'm going for here, and that's why I've got all these clamps on here. Now this is done, so I'm going to remove these clamps and try not to. I've got a blister in the end of this finger from a blood blister where I pinched it in these clamps yesterday. So I'm going to be very careful removing all these clamps, because honestly, that hurts like a son of a gun. So trying not to pinch my fingers this time. Now you'll see some little pieces of wood fall out. I use some clamping cauls on the inside, and it's basically, there's some extra pieces of wood in here, and the purpose of that was to try to, instead of like these, use round pads to push in when they're clamping, but in order to help spread some of that clamping pressure around. Well, please tell me you didn't stick it in here. That would be ridiculous. I used some pieces of wood just to kind of help spread that clamping pressure around. And I've got another one here. And a little glue seeped out of the bottom, so I've got just a little squeeze out that's kind of holding this in place here, but that's okay. There we go. No worries. So yeah, I had to put in the little pieces here just where I could. Oh, it's a little side heavy now. So what I'm going to do is repeat this process for every single base. This is the second one that's gotten a full glue up. I will repeat this for that cherry one, because those are already cut and sized and ready to go. And then I will cut and size the thin strips for the rest of the bases and put them in line to be clamped up. Now here's the problem I have. Did you see how many clamps there are here? I haven't counted them yet, but there are a number of clamps here. Let's just do a quick count, shall we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh my God. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 clamps. I had 15 clamps on this thing. I know that's a lot of clamps, right? But as woodworkers know, you can never have too many clamps. Well, the problem with never having too many clamps is sometimes you don't have enough clamps. So in my instance, I do not have enough clamps to do more than one base at a time. So I really can't clamp more than one of these. Now this one's fully done. These are locked in. They're not going anywhere. Looking at it, it appears to me that this is a really, really good joint. I will have to clean up a couple things like right inside here where this wood's going to go. I just need, there's a little squeeze out that I can just chisel off to make sure that dado is nice and clean, because we don't want anything hindering our piece of wood that's going to slide in there. So I know I'm doing this now. I shouldn't be, but I am because it's just bugging me. But there we go. I'm just chopping the little piece of glue squeeze out of there. That looks pretty good. Same thing on this side. I'm going to have to do that. Anyway, so when I get it to this point, what I'm going to do is take the hand plane and plane these thin strips down to be flush with this. So I will do that with this particular one, but I'll take the next one, put it in clamps. And that clamping is going to basically be several hours before I can remove those clamps and then put the next one into clamps. So I'm going to get them all staged so that all the pieces are cut for each individual base. And then once I have that done, I'm just going to, after one's done, I'll rotate it out, take the clamps off like we just did, glue up the next one, put them in the clamps, and then set it aside. And then I think bare minimum, I'd like to wait like 4 hours before I actually take those clamps off and then swap out a new one in. I think 4 hours is probably good. I could probably go less. I don't know what the general consensus on glue time is. I generally prefer longer rather than shorter. That's kind of just the way I've always been. Like when I glue my base bottoms in, I do those for a minimum of like usually like 8 hours. I'll put them in, and then I won't take them out until the next day. So 8 to 12 hours usually is my minimum for clamping time. And all I'm going on is the fact that I've always done it that long and I've never had a failure with any of my glue joints. And that includes things like gluing up panels, gluing up cutting boards, things like that. I've always gotten really good glue joints, and I let my glues cure for the longest I can. I mean, anything past that I think really, really is overkill. Probably anything over like 2 hours is overkill, but I don't know. I've never seen a scientific test that looked at the amount of time in gluing in clamps. You know what I'm saying. A clamped up glue up. How does that affect the strength of that joint by the amount of time that you leave them in the clamps? And I've never actually seen anything to definitively say at least this or whatever. There are glues. I'm trying to remember who makes one. I think it's DAP. Makes a quick set glue. It's a woodworking glue, but it's like a 30-minute to be, fully set. So if you have a project which you have to move forward quickly on, I've never used it, but I have seen some people who have that say it's pretty good, that you can, like if you need to do something and you need to cut some joinery stuff or whatever, and you can't wait a day for that to dry, that stuff supposedly works well. I don't know, never tried it, and I really don't have a need to. But like I said, I've never seen a study that says you should leave them in clamps for X amount of time and then anything else is a waste of your time. I've never seen that. If you know of one, please let me know. If you, through your own processes or things that you've seen, read, whatever, please let me know. I really would like to know. That's one of the things that really kind of inhibits my progress when doing things is the fact that I have to leave things in clamps for a really long time. Let's see. So the next thing we're going to do is we will put this cherry base in clamps because they're already cut and sized. And we can then lower that one down. I'll get my plane out and we'll flatten that down and make it look nice. From there, I have some more pieces that have been thinned down. So here's some long ones right here. That's for this base. This base right here is a full size with a storage, so it gets a longer one. I also have a base, it's down below, you can't see it, but it's just a full size. It does not have the storage, so it stops right here. So I've cut some shorter ones that will fit inside those. So these need to be fitted, and I have a couple of more down there. There's another cherry that needs fitting, and another hickory that's gonna need fitting. So we will cut these down so that when it comes time to glue, well, they're ready to roll. So we've got these to do. And that's a pretty good chunk of stuff to do for right now. We also have, you know, some regular operational stuff to do. Like we can take, well, I'm losing my mind. So we could take this base right here, and this is going to have to be inserted in here. So we could cut this down and glue this in. And I could actually, I've got a clamp that I could do that because it's just, the sides get glued up and then it gets pressed in and I put a clamp on there and that's all we need to do to that. So we could, you know, as these things get shaved down, we bring the sides flush, we can go ahead and work on inserting these. So lots of little things to get everything kind of in one place. So that's, yeah, lots to do. This goes with, I got to keep these pieces together with their respective bases, so I don't get because I've got a lot of scrap wood and I don't want to get them mixed up and then have to go searching for them later. If you were here on Monday, you saw that I did get a new planer. I got a DeWalt. It's the DW734. So it's kind of like at the low end of the DeWalt spectrum, but super happy with it. Like I said, I got it used, or I didn't get it used, I got it new in the box on Facebook Marketplace. So guy never used it, but he had it and I got a great deal on it. So I think I paid like 350 bucks for it, which is a fantastic deal for a really good brand name planer. It's also a triple blade planer. 3 blades gives you a smoother cut because you've got more blades interacting as it's moving through. The last one I had was a 2 blade. And you'd get a little bit of a kind of a rippling effect in there as it was feeding through because it was only 2 blades. 3 blades I have noticed is a much smoother cut. It also has a lockdown feature, so when you get your height set, you can lock it in, and that locks the cutting head to the stanchions and keeps the movement as the wood enters. It keeps that movement of that cutting head from rising up or dipping into the wood. And that gives you snipe. So the snipe is very minimal on this planer too. So I'm super happy about that. I got it mounted to my flip top cart and I'm happy to say that it actually does work in the flip top. So when I flip it around, it actually does store underneath without any issue. I was concerned about that. The height of it, I was like, I don't know if it's gonna fit, but it does fit under my flip top cart. So no modifications needed there. That is awesome. And yeah, I think it's time to get into things here. Actually, you know what? There's one thing I'm looking for is my phone. I don't have my phone. And I just like to have it on me in case I get a message or something that is important, that at least I have my phone with me. So hang on just one second. I'm gonna pop inside. I think I just left it inside. So I'm gonna go hop in here and grab that. Maybe, if I can find it. There it is. All right, got my phone. And Okay. Oh, yeah. So see, I wasn't there and I wasn't looking, and my wife sent me a message. Oh my. Oh dang. Um, you know what? Give me just a second. I have to go wake my son. I know. I can't. It is what it is. I'll be right back. And I'm back. That's exciting. All right. I have awakened the boy. It's not really a boy anymore, but he'll always be my boy. What is under here that is making this all wobbly? That is. All right. So I'm going to pull this over here because I want to get this into the clamps as soon as possible. I think that's probably the best thing to do is get a glue up going here. And then we can move on with the other stuff because you know what? Glue can just dry. Now, when I cut these, the way I cut these, there's a little bit of wood burn on the top. Right here, you can see from the saw blade, and the way I milled these up or whatever. It's inconsequential. They're clean on the bottom, but I'm going to put that on top when these get cut in, because that way this will just get sheared off with my my hand plane after the fact. So really not a big deal. I just want to make sure that those sides are up. Do I have a paper towel here? I do not. So let me go grab a paper towel because my fingers get gluey because I use those to gluey. Is that a word? Glue covered? That seems like too many words when I can just say gluey. So my fingers do get a little gluey because I use them as spreaders when I'm doing this. And I just need some paper towels to wipe the glue off. It's not a complicated issue here to get these done. But the one thing I will say is I like to get the dust and such cleaned out of these so that I'm getting a nice clean surface. I'm going to just hit this with the vacuum real quick. And really the whole point is to just make sure that I've got all of the little dust and whatnots out of the corners, because that will keep me from having a really good glue joint if there's things that are keeping this from pressing together. So as far as the amount of glue I'm going to use on here, I try to not go crazy. It doesn't need a lot. You just need a light covering on the whole thing. So I'm going to go ahead and just, how about, I got that camera on. So we'll just kind of go here. I'm trying not to get too much glue on here. I have on some of these gotten a little carried away and gotten a little too much glue. So I'm going to try to spread this around. The one thing I do not want is a lot of squeeze out. I'd like to see just a little bit, but I don't need a ton of squeeze out on this. I want adequate glue coverage without wasting glue. And let's see what we can get here. Actually, that's just pretty good. That's pretty good. That's not bad. So I'm really just making sure that I've got glue on all the surface areas here. And it's just a thin coating of glue, but I don't want any dry wood. I want it all wet with glue. I can even get some on the bottom down here. I can get it on the bottom and I can get it on this end because this end is going to be pressed into there. But this is what I've got for glue. You can see that it's wet from one end to the other and it's completely covered. And then I can insert that into this side like that. And then generally I do not wait to clamp because I don't want this thing setting up and then having to shift it or anything after the fact. So usually once I get one side done here, I will get it in as tight as I can to these sides, and then I will start clamping it. And I think I'm going to do that same method of using some clamping cauls on here just so that I can get especially with these F-style clamps, and that's what I'll start with. I want to make sure that I'm getting as much pressure on here, but spreading it out as much as I can as well. And I clamp it kind of near the top. And the reason for that, instead of going right in the middle of the wood, the reason I go for the top is that I don't care if it's super tight down here at the bottom. I want it to be super tight up here at the top. And so I usually will apply my clamping pressure up here at the top and try to get that seam as good as I can up there. So I clamp nearer the top, maximum pressure, really getting a really tight seam across that top so that when I go to plane these things down, that's all you're seeing is that you're going to see that nice tight glue joint. Well, hopefully you won't see that nice tight glue joint. Hopefully it'll be so tight that it will just blend right in. The only thing you want to make sure of when you're doing a glue up like this is that as you're applying pressure, that it's not sliding your board up or down or over or whatever. You want it to be positioned where it needs to be, and they can drift a little bit sometimes. So just make sure that you're getting that in there. Now this is a wider section. I may put another one right here in the middle of this. I think I will put one in here. Just because, like I said, I'm not afraid to use clamps. If I think it's going to be of my benefit, man, I will slap on another clamp. All right. So that looks like I've got a good seam all the way across there. And I can do the other side now. Now I've got other clamps that I use for the other side. They're just a different style of clamp. They're spring clamps, but I can adjust the pressure on them and get hundreds of pounds of clamping force with those things. They're really good. They're made by Craig. They're spring clamps. And I think they're originally made for their pocket jig stuff. But I have used them in all kinds of different clamping operations. And I really like them because their pads, their circular pads, I think they do a better job of spreading out the clamping force. Much better than these smaller F-style clamps do. So. But anyway, I'm going to start spreading this one around, getting it all done here. Switch back to here. I wonder if I do auto. I wonder if that does. Let me see something here. Oh, that gives me a nice fade. Let's do that. I like the little fade in between. I used to have it on there, and I think I bumped it with a piece of wood and changed it. So I like my fade in. It's kind of what I would call that a cross dissolve in video parlance. Now that is not good. Get that off of here. Speaking of video, so I know that GoPro just released their GoPro Model 10, or their, the GoPro 10. I think this past week they released that. And there's a ton of videos online if you want to go check it out and see what the things are and stuff. I personally like this camera that you're looking at right here. That is a GoPro Model 7. It's a GoPro Hero Black 7, and I've had it for several years, and I'm really happy with it, but it's getting a little long in the tooth, and so I could have purchased the newest one, which is the GoPro Hero Black. The problem with that is that when they went to the Hero 9, I think sometime last year, they abandoned the, there we go, get that in there as tight as I can. They abandoned the battery format that they had with the 7 and the 8. So the 7 and the 8 used the same batteries. So I was like, I already have batteries for the 7 and I have the chargers and everything else. If I got the 10, I would have to basically, it's like buying a camera and having to buy new lenses kind of thing or whatever. It's just one of those things where I've already got stuff. So, depending on what I want to use it for. And for me, I'm going to go this way because there's two size circles. This pad is larger than this pad. So I put the larger pad on the inside. And like I said, I try to get those kind of near the top here. And if you get them lined up across from each other, like if you shift it and get them lined up from across from each other, you can get a lot of pressure on here. Let me get this. There we go. Anyway, so I actually ordered a Hero 8. And the nice thing is that when they came out with the Hero 10, well, they lowered the prices on the other models. So I don't think they sell a 7 anymore. I need to make sure this is down as far as I go. They don't sell 7 anymore, but they sell the 8. The 8 still takes the same battery, and it's going to be better than the one I have. So I got a Hero 8. So I'm kind of excited about that. Now, I got it because I'm going to be taking a bike packing trip. Oh, you can see how hard those are to clamp in. Here in next week. It'll be starting next week. I will be bike packing from Pittsburgh to Washington, D.C. Now, I have to first get to Pittsburgh. Oh, God, this is hard. Hang on. This is how I pinch a finger. So I will be taking a train from Union Station in Washington, D.C. to Union Station in Pittsburgh. And then once I get there, I'll get a hotel for the night. And then the next morning, I'll start my trek. There is a trail. I think I've talked about this online anyway, but I'll talk about it again because I'm just gluing. So there's a trail in Pennsylvania called the Great Allegheny, the Gap Trail. So it's like the Great Allegheny Passage. Yeah, Great Allegheny Passage, GAP. And it runs from Pittsburgh to Cumberland, Maryland. And it's a former railroad path. So it's a rail trail. And that's about 150 miles, 160 miles, give or take. And then in Cumberland, where that ends, that is the beginning of the C&O Canal Trail, which runs from Cumberland to, well, basically Georgetown, which is in Washington, D.C. So I will be riding that trail, or biking that trail. And I will be bike packing. It's kind of the same as backpacking, except you do it on a bike instead of on your feet. So I will be bike packing and camping along the way and other such stuff. And I'm looking forward to that. That should be a lot of fun. I had a thin piece, yeah. So I've got one of these F clamps here that does not have, I lost the little rubber foot on it. Actually, do I have another one? You know what, let me grab one without the rubber, with a rubber foot pad on there, because I don't want to mar the outside surface of the base Especially this is cherry. Cherry's a little softer. And well, I'm still going to use this. And because cherry can mar, I've got a little, just an offcut thin piece to put on the outside for this particular one, because I do not want to screw this up. And I'm also going to use a block of wood on the inside to clamp to as a caul. So let me get this all in here and make sure this is down. And I have one more clamp here I'm going to use. Yeah, we'll use this one. But anyway, so that's going to be taking place starting next week. It's really hard to do something like that because you kind of try to get the weather and stuff engaged. I didn't want to go earlier in the summer because it was just too hot. You know, last thing you want to do when it's like 90 degrees and humid is be riding a bike for, 6 hours a day or whatever. And then camping outside when it's hot is not my cup of tea. I do not like sleeping in the warm. So fall was definitely the target time for me. And I've been looking at the weather reports and the extended weather. Of course, you know how accurate those can be or inaccurate. So I've just been looking at those and trying to figure out, well, what is the best time to do this? And I think I found a window here. And the other thing is, so like you have to, the train that goes from DC to Pittsburgh, it actually goes all the way to Chicago, but it actually has space for bicycles that you can actually wheel your bicycle on and put it in there and take your bike with you. And I think it costs like 20 extra bucks to do that. But there's only like 4 slots for bikes in there. So they sell out kind of quick. So every date I was looking, I was like, okay, well this date, this date, this date. Every date I looked at was like no space available. So I had to go out far enough to find a date that actually would accommodate me taking my bike. And so I found one. So that was good. And so that's very exciting for me. This is the first time I've done something like that. I've been riding my bike quite a bit. You all know I always tell you when I go out and ride my bike and stuff. But, and I've done lots of like hiking things and like, I hiked in the Himalayas and all kinds of stuff. But this is the first time I've done something like this. So it'll be very cool. I'm going solo, so I will be self-supporting and should be fun. All right, and you know what else is fun? Gluing. Anyway, hopefully you see that this is a process. Getting this glue up done. Look at all those clamps on there. All those little clamps. But this isn't glue. I'm going to set this aside. I'm going to get this just the heck out of the way because it just takes up a lot of space. So I'm going to move this way out of the way. Set this across the room. There we go. And then hopefully sometime later this afternoon, I will come out and pop those out of the clamps and pop a new one in. So we're actually at a junction now where we can do one of two things. We can either level that down or cut the spacers, the thin pieces down and size them for the next ones for glue ups. I think just to break the monotony, I'm going to get the hand plane and plane that down. I think that would be more fun, don't you? So here we go. We've got this little puppy right here. I actually have a bench stop. So this is a let me show you on this camera. So this right here, I just made this. It goes between the dog holes. So these are just a couple of dowel pins in here, screwed in to this piece of oak, and they're screwed in like this, and they are perfectly spaced to fit into the dog holes like that, and they make basically a planer stop so I can push against them and it just keeps my wood from sliding away. So the table needs to be reflattened. Anyway, let me clean off my little glue bottle here just really quick. Close the cap on that. And then I've got my hand plane, and I actually have 2 cameras here for this. So I've got this camera right here, in the other camera view. I'm going to move the bench out of the way because I like to stand up when I do this. Sitting down just never feels quite right. All right, I'm going to take this piece of wood and stick it over here. And then really what I'm going to do is look for my grain direction. Sometimes it doesn't matter, but it appears that the grain is running like in this direction, which means I want to go this way. I don't want to go into the grain because that'll do tear out, so I'll go this way. This one's kind of flat, so I don't know if this end piece really cares, but with this hickory being such a hard wood, I want to cut in the proper direction, make it an easier cut, and make it as easy as I can on my tool here. But all I'm getting is these super thin little, like party streamer sized shavings. I'm just going to dump them into the box here because I can throw them away later. But I'm just getting those really thin ones because all I'm doing is taking this down until I get, when I start getting the thicker shavings, that means that I'm getting flush with this surface. Now, the one thing about this piece of hickory that I put in here is that it actually has some figure to it. So I'll be interested to see if that affects it in here, because it's got a little like a tiger striping figure to it, a curl, whatever you want to call it. And it's really interesting looking. I actually salvaged some of the hickory board that I used for this, and I'm going to take what was a smaller base that I can't fix because I made cuts on it trying to figure out how I was going to fix these things, and I sacrificed the smaller one. And so anyway, but it's still going to get used because I already cut handles in the side, you know, the little grippy handles. I've already cut those, so I'm going to take those side panels out and make a new base for a different style machine, and use some of this figured hickory in there, and I think that will look really nice. So I have some extra wood to use for that. I'm going to salvage as much of that as I can out of it, and so, you know, try to keep my wood out of the burn pile as much as I can. Only put in there what I need to. Sun leave yet? Not yet. Better get his butt moving. It's raining outside, and it just means traffic's gonna suck. Pardon my French, but there's just no other way to put it. At least in this area, if it's raining, traffic sucks. I mean, it's already kind of bad anyway, so just add a little rain drama on top of things, and it's just the way it is. Anyway, making lots of party shavings here. Why is that stuck in there? I don't like that. Get out of there. Hang on a second. I'm going to open up the gate here because I got some stuff here that's stuck. Move this. Open up the mouth. Clean it out. And then close the mouth up. I try to get really fine shaving, so I keep the mouth pretty close to the blade. Because you can adjust the mouth width. I need to do this two-handed operation here. Let me get it in the right spot. Yeah. Because the thinner the mouth, the opening between the blade and the front, the thinner the shavings will be. I don't want really, especially on this hickory stuff, I don't want really big shavings because it might tend to tear out. And there's also like anomalies on this wood There's some, golly, I keep catching it though, because even chunks of it kind of get stuck under there. There's like little knots and things on here, so I have to be real careful with that. What's the temperature today? 77 degrees. So not super cool, but not really hot. I might put a fan on here in a minute because I tend to work up a little bit of a sweat doing this. Even though I'm not taking off a lot of wood, I'm applying a lot of pressure as I make these cuts. Make sure I'm getting a nice smooth cut across the surface. I cut these kind of high. Probably didn't have to cut them as high as I did. So this is probably a little more than 1/8 of an inch. Maybe about 3/16 above there. And I've got about 1/16 of an inch to go, so I'm getting close. I could have cut these a little closer. I think some of the later ones, I kind of realized that I didn't need that much overhang and cut them a little bit more narrow so that I didn't have as much planing to do after the fact. But these first ones, I cut them a little bit higher than I needed to, because I'm always like, well, I'd rather have too much than not enough, but I had way too much. That's a little bit of an issue sometimes. All right. So you all know I have chat windows. So if you are watching and you're watching live, please feel free to jump into chat and I will check it as often as I can and respond to your chat comments. And if you have questions, feel free, comments, whatever. That's always fun for me. Because otherwise I'm just a crazy person talking to themselves in their garage. One of the reasons I started live streaming, because people would stop thinking I was completely crazy. Well, he's talking to himself. No, he's live streaming. It's okay. All right, we're getting close. And as I get closer to the actual side, the sole of the plane will kind of ride on this edge and it will gradually lower things down till it's flush all the way along. So it's acting as a guide for the plane to kind of help me get the last little sections. But I'm getting pretty close here. And yeah, so if you'll see, I'm starting to get, I don't know if you can see it or not, but I'm getting some wider pieces now. That's a little bit wider. So I'm starting to get a little bit, like right in this area, I think I'm getting a little bit wider piece on here. And I want to get it so that I don't see any glue squeeze. There's a little glue squeeze out where this piece was above this piece, and so it squeezed out the top. So when I get down to the point where I don't see any glue squeeze out, like right down here, we are pretty good. Still a little high over here, but I can now kind of start skipping some areas that I know I've got still a little bit more. That is pretty good. There we go. Now nice wide shaving right across here. Now the other thing is I've got some saw marks on here, so I can. There we go. Nice wide shaving there. And this stuff just, the grain changes direction right here, so kind of a pain. But that looks pretty good. Let's come in here and I'll show you. So that's not bad, right? You can see, I mean, you're going to tell in some areas because you've got like these little knots and stuff and they just run into that seam. But all in all though, color matching pretty decent. There will be some stain that goes on here, so it won't be super dark, but hopefully dark enough to, like I said, kind of conceal that a little bit. Now looking at this, I would like to flip it around and do it this way. I'd like to flip it around and do it this way. come in like this, but my grain is running up, which means I would be cutting uphill. I would be cutting into those fibers and getting tear out. So I'm just going to have to reach across and do it on this side. Give me just a second. I'm going to move my fence on my table saw because it has a tendency, it's lined up in line with that, and my plane will actually hit it on the end here. So I don't want that. So I'm going to come over here. And now when I come off the end, my plane is clearing that. So you can see my plane will not hit this. It clears it about like that. So, all righty. And the first few cuts on here are always a little rough because I've got two surfaces here. So once these are perfectly flat across the top of them, then it'll glide a little bit easier. Back to my nice little thin confetti size shavings here. Do y'all use hand tools? I like hand tools. I don't use them as much as some people do. I think there's Third Coast Carpenters or something like that, a YouTube channel. You know, there's folks that do things exclusively with hand tools. They build all of their projects using hand tools, to include like all of their drilling and stuff. They use the old, I don't even know what it's called, but you drill like this kind of thing. They'll use those. It's almost unheard of for them to use a power tool. Whereas me, I enjoy the hand tool. And I think that, you know, like for what I'm doing here, it's absolutely the correct tool for this job. But it's not the tool, like if I'm flattening lumber, yeah, I'm not flattening with a plane. I could. I've got planes that I could actually go and do that with, but good Lord. Just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? I don't know. You know what I do know is I'm getting a little warm over here, so I'm going to grab my fan over behind the table here, and I'm just going to turn that on just to blow a little air my way. Kind of keep me, I've got a nice cool shirt on and stuff, but just need to blow a little air my way. The other thing with using the hand tools and stuff is I tend to get blisters in places like right up here in the heel of my hand because I don't do it a ton. Even though this is a very comfortable plane in my hand, it still presses in areas where I can get a little bit of, what do you call that, hand distress? I can get blisters and stuff sometimes, so try to move my hand position around a little bit, keep that from happening. I guess if I did this all the time, my hands would be tough in the appropriate places, and that wouldn't be an issue. It's like playing guitar. You all probably know I play guitar. And the fingers on this hand right here, those are, when I would give blood and they would go to do a finger prick to, you know, test the blood first, I have to send them to the other hand because those fingers, or those fingertips, are very tough from just years of pressing into guitar strings. So I just don't do this enough for my body to adapt to the pressures of it. So that's all right though. It is a good workout though, I will say. You know, I'm using muscle groups that I don't normally use, I think. There's not a lot of stuff you do in your daily life that has this kind of motion to it. So you will find and discover new muscle groups as you're planing. That's another reason why I'm going to move this over a little bit here. I prefer it a little closer to my body here so I'm not reaching out because that's a little bit more stressful on my back. The further away you are from your body, the more stress you're putting on your back. I guess this is a good core exercise too, like using those core muscles in the stomach, the abdomen, using the lats, the triceps. I can feel all those muscles at work right now, so it's not taxing me, but I can definitely feel them getting a workout. Trying to get this knocked out so we can move on to some other stuff. But I'm pretty even across the top here in terms of my removal, so which is a good thing because that means I'm getting good pressure across the length of the stroke here. So I'm removing similar amounts of wood with each pass instead of being really like heavy on this end and then lighter on this end, to where it would be shallower here and deeper here. So try to keep even pressure all the way across. Keep your cuts nice and balanced across the surface of the wood. Not always easy to do. Like I said, I'll be at a point here in just a minute where I'm going to start seeing longer shavings, or wider shavings, I should say. These are plenty long, but they're about to get wider. I think probably this end first. The other thing is I didn't square these up on the corners before I did these glue-ins, so if they aren't perfectly flush in the corners, I'm going to have a hard time. I'll have to take some of this existing wood off, but I think, okay, here. And this is so much more work than I was planning on doing on these bases. But hopefully this fix will be beneficial and salvage these projects. That's my main goal, is to salvage these projects so that I can still have a viable product to sell at the end of the day. Okay, now we're gonna, down here, I'm getting into a little bit flatter wood. Still a little bit more to go here, so I can kind of ease up as I get down to this end, not push all the way through. Now, okay, now I got to make sure. Okay, so here's where it's getting tricky. I have grain coming in this direction, so it's coming up like this, but this is going down like this. So I've got two different grain directions going on here. So that's very tricky for me to take care of this. So I'm going to go very gently with these so I don't tear any of this wood. And I might flip it around now, because the thicker wood, see if this works. Yeah, see, that didn't do it. So it caught right there. Dang. That is, see, I've got a lot of like little knots and stuff going on around here, so the grain is changing directions. This is why, like I said, hickory is just a royal pain in the butt to work with. But that being said, I think I've got this now to the point where this is flat all the way around here. Yeah, so right where that seam is, I don't feel anything. It's not a perfect seam. This one's a little bit better glue up than this one. I mean, I did my best. I think it's pretty good. And you know, once you have a machine sitting in here, that's also the back. So this is the front. So the front looks a little better. So take that into consideration too. But this one is done. I'm going to take my middle piece that goes back in here. So now I have two of them in this state. I've got the walnut. Where are you, walnut? There we go. So I've got this walnut one, this walnut, and this hickory. And they are now in a, I won't say they're in a finished state, they're in a repaired state. Let's put it that way. I think that's a good way of putting it. So they have now been repaired to the proper dimensions. And I can now work on getting this wood ready for some of the other ones to come. So let's look. Oh, here, I've got one right here. I've got this oak one right here. These shorties, let me put these with the, actually I'll get these ready too. Let me grab the base that these go with. Oops. I got some of this stuff just spread around the shop just to keep it from being on the work surfaces all the time. So here's the shorter one. So you can see, if I kind of just show you, width-wise, this one is the same width as this part without this added storage space over here. So I cut shorter ones to go in here, longer ones to deal with this. So I think what we'll do is I will rearrange things in the shop to set up my my crosscut saw and get it set for these. Now, that being said, if I'm going to be smart about this, which why would I want to start being smart now? I might look at just making sure that these sides right here are nice and flush before I actually go glue pieces of wood that I'm going to be cleaning up. And I don't think it'll take a lot of work to do that. Let me get my little, all I'm going to do is make sure that when I glue these pieces in, I'm going to have an easy time. And I think I can just take my little block plane here and do some quick cleanup here. Maybe. Perhaps. Hello. Doesn't seem like it's doing anything. Hang on a second. Let me, oh, that's just terrible. First of all, I need to adjust the angle of this. It's all crooked. Not sure when that happened. So let me adjust the angle, because you want that blade straight in here. So there's a little pivot on the back here. You can move this back and forth, and that pivot changes the angle of the blade in the plane. And I want that pretty square. So that's good. I also want to change the mouth. This one has a mouth that you can change the mouth depth like I did on the other one. So I'm going to close that distance a little bit. And then I might want to, that feels like I can feel that blade now. So I'm going to lock this in and see if that gives me a better cut on here. There we go. I don't want to chew anything off of here and break any sides off, but I do want to just clean this edge so that when I run the bigger plane across here, I'm dealing with flat, flush surfaces on the corners. I think that's probably the best way to put it. It's pretty good. It's still see. Kind of irks me. Ugh. Actually, you know what? Hang on. Might have to get the big one out here just to give this a gentle nudge. A little nudge right here. Because this one is so much sharper than that little block plane. Stop it. running out of space. There we go. Okay, that is flush. This one feels flush. That feels flush. And this one is not. And this one needs to come down. I'm going to take a little off of this edge over here. Go. And this one. Really, like I said, the only reason I'm doing this is because when I'm flattening these pieces with the plane, I'm not going to be running into issues where the sides aren't flush already. So I'm starting with a flush surface to start with. And I think that is the best way to go here. There we go. Just nice straight across, nice easy cut. Everybody feels good. You do not feel good. There we go. All right. So this one now is ready for me to cut and size. So hopefully you understood why I did that. The other thing is this is really super dusty dirty. So I'm going to clean it out really quick and get all the scraps and stuff out of here. Okay, and since I have my hand on the dust collecting hose, I will put it back over here on the saw. So that's where we will be going next. And all right, now we are all set up and ready to cut these to size. So really what happens is instead of just making one cut, I have to make this in multiple cuts because I have to allow for this dado that's right here. So if you remember, there's a dado right here which needs to remain open. So I can't just glue a piece of wood across there. That dado needs to stay open, and that means that I need to cut a piece of wood from here to here and then another shorter piece from here to here. And I cut this way oversized so that I have plenty to work with. Now the one thing I need to do is figure out which side is up. I'm going to put the burned wood side up. And then now, here's something really interesting I'm going to put on this camera. So on this piece of wood right here, I don't know if you can see it, there's basically a rough spot in the wood right here. So I'm going to plan for that by making sure that that is interior to the base. So when this thing gets glued in, that rough spot that's on the wood, you'll never see it. It'll be glued to the inside of this piece of wood, and therefore not a concern. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure from this interior wall to that dado cut and see how long that is. That is 14 3/4 inches, almost exactly. That's kind of reassuring since that's what it's supposed to be. So I'm going to cut this about 1/8 of an inch too long. So 14 7/8. And the reason I'm doing it long is I want to sneak up on that measurement. I don't want to just go right to 14 3/4 on the off chance that I just miss it by a 32nd of an inch or whatever, and then I have this weird kind of extra wood or lack of wood in my joint. So to get my joints nice and flush, I go just a hair over, and then I will work down to that measurement. I'll just nibble away a little piece of wood each time until I get it perfect. So I'm going to put my pencil mark on here, run up to the pencil mark, drag a line. Okay, and now I have a cut line. Now the next piece will be cut, and it'll be this side. So let me, oh, you know what? I didn't do one thing, and I really should have. So in order to make sure this is square, I need to make sure that this end, first of all, is square. And I'm looking at it, and it is not. So I see when I'm looking at it through here, I've got the edge of my thing. Let me do it with the long edge here. Yeah, it's not square. So the first thing I'm going to do, I have to redo this line. First of all, let me erase this because, like I said, I want to get this so that it fits nicely into these corners. And in order to do that, it takes, it needs to be really square going in. If it's not square, it may not fit and I may get gaps. So the first thing I'm going to do is take this over to the saw and just nibble a really thin edge off of there and see if that fits a little bit more. Well, we'll remeasure. But anyway, just taking a really thin piece off. Hang on, I need two things. I need ears. They're inside. I cut the grass yesterday and I wore them because they're Bluetooth and I can hear music through them. So let me grab those. They're just inside. And I'm not necessarily listening to music in here, but when you're cutting the lawn, because I don't have a riding lawnmower, so these are my ISO tunes. So they've got the little Bluetooth controls and stuff, but in here I just use them as headphones. So just going to get that, and we are going to, is this the one I was working with? No, it's over here. We're just going to take a really thin edge off of here, and then we will remeasure. The other thing I need is my dust. The other thing I try to do is make sure that the edge I put against the fence is very flat. Because even though this one looked flat, when I put it on the fence, it had a little bit of rock to it. And that is not going to give me an accurate cut. So I want the flattest side against the fence. Now we will remeasure. And we will do 14 7/8 again. There. Okay. All right, now we have a very nice edge. I can put this edge against the fence. This is 14 7/8. This is very square. If I run this, oh yeah, that's square. Okay, let me go cut this one really quick. We'll come back and we'll check it. Now, I'm not switching camera angles because I would have to set up a new camera angle and then it's just kind of a pain to go for that little piece of time. If I was cutting more stuff at that point in time, I'd say, let's do it, but since we're not. Okay, so first thing I'm checking is I've got a really good fit here in the corner because, I cleaned up that nice edge and I've got a nice square fit in there. And in here, I should be 1/8 of an inch over, and that's exactly what it looks like I am. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start with the crosscut saw, and I'm going to nibble off a little bit at a time. When I get really super close, if it's just a hair over, I will come over and finish it off using the hand plane. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and do this. Okay, so each time you see me coming over there, what I'm doing is I lower the saw all the way down until the teeth are under the table. And that in turn allows me to press my wood into the flat of the saw blade, not the teeth, the flat. So the teeth on a saw blade stick out further than the disc that they're attached to. Not by much, but they stick out on each side of that flat disc. They stick out about I'd say a 64th of an inch, give or take. It depends on the saw blade, but not very much. But what I can do is by sliding this into that flat part of the blade, I lift it back up, and when I bring it back down, the teeth that are overhanging just nibble off a 64th of an inch. So it's a really easy way to make really precise cuts, you know, when you're trying to, like I said, sneak up on your measurement. Now, that being said, get this back in here, check it. And what I'm checking for now is flushness. And I'm just, I'm more than maybe 128th or something like that. I don't want to take it back to the saw because I would take too much off. So what I'm going to do now is just use the hand plane to just nibble off a tiny bit. Let's see if I can get this super flush in here. And that, I'm just using my fingertip, and that feels perfect. So there you go. So this is going to fit inside here. I've got the saw marks, the saw burn marks up top. They will get taken care of when we glue this. I mean, it's not, unfortunately, you know, we're going to try to get it as good as we can. But this one's done. So we're going to do the same thing over here. I always measure, even though it should be the exact same measurement, I'm going to measure this one as well. And this one's just a hair over, but I'm going to go to the same 14 7/8 on here. I'm going to check this for square. I know that end is not square. How about this end? Is this end square? Let's see. I don't have a square end to be found here. They're close, but they're not square. So I'm going to square up this end really quick. Then we'll strike a line on here, make our measurement, but that'll give us a little bit more accurate cut. Okay. You're like, what is he doing? I'm trying not to be confused, which for me is a full-time job. All right, kind of bothered me. A little chip right here. I'm going to get rid of that. I'm just getting all the dust nibs. Some wood gets little fibers pulled up more than others. Now I do have a tiny little bit of snipe right here that I would like to leave on the inside, not the outer wall facing where it's going to get glued, because it's just not super flat. This is much flatter over here. So I'm going to measure and do it this way, I think. Well, I can do it this way. Doesn't really matter as long as I have my snipey side facing the interior of the box here. So let's go with this. Now let me check this real quick. It should be square. Wait a second. Did I cut this end? I cut this end. Yikes! All right, I'm measuring from this end where I cut. I'm going to keep this stuff straight because this one's way off. I was like, that wasn't even close. All right, 14 7/8. Right there you are, sir. Okay. And strike my line here. Now, what's going to happen is once I get this cut, because this will be very square as well. Once this is cut, I'm going to start nibbling from the other side, because that's the side that I want to have out like this. So anyway, all right, cutting time. It's cutting time. And then I will start measuring this, and then we can get this tuned down. I probably need to replace this blade. It's the original blade I got with this thing. All right, so this is my burned edge. This is the edge right here. Let me check. Hang on a second. I got to clean this corner up. Clean this off here. Oh, that's a really nice corner right there. All right, I'm going to start nibbling off of this edge now, and we'll get it fit. One more. Jeez, mighty. Okay, that is pretty perfect right there. So now we have two sides done, and I just have to do these smaller pieces right here. So I'm just going to keep these in relation to where they are. I should have two cut edges here that are square. Let me just check to make sure. So that's square. So I just need to figure out the length on this one now. This inner piece is we're going to call it just a hair under 4 inches here, because it's really close to 4 inches. So we're just going to put this there, get my line drawn on here. Okay, and then let's see if we can get this thing nailed down. Now, this is my edge that goes against the fence. Okay, I need to clean this with a chisel right here. I think I got a little glue in the corner, just a tiny bit. You can't even see it really. It's just, I can feel it, but it keeps keeping that edge from getting firmly seated. So let me see if that's better. Oh, that's better. Still not great. Try it this way. Try it this way. It's worse. It's worse. And sometimes your stuff's just not square. It's just off just a hair. So just try to find the one that works best. And this one's actually not bad right there. So we're going to go this way. And I'm going to put a little T on here so that I know that T faces me and it's on top. And then I can start nibbling off the edge of this thing because I found the edge that fits best, and that's what we're going to work with. I went really super slow there to hopefully let the teeth kind of do their best job cutting. And that actually looked pretty good. I barely took anything off. But I think what I need to do is just run this with the hand plane, just a couple of passes on here. And just finesse that edge just a little bit. I'm taking minimal amounts of wood when I'm using the hand plane. So, ooh, that's pretty smooth. I think one more, just a little bit more. That was two, but they're really skinny. And that feels really good. All right, got that one done. One more to go. This should be my nice square edge. So let me check this for square. Right here. And all I'm doing is looking, I've got a light right here, and I'm just looking to see if this is sitting flat on that wood or if I'm seeing any light passing through. So that's all I'm doing when I hold it up like that, is just checking for light. All right, let me get a measurement here. This one is just a hair over 4 1/8. So, or not 4 1/8, like 4, yeah, 3 and a little over 3 7/8. So we're going to go 1/16 under 4 here, this way. This away, 1/16 under 4 should get us in the neighborhood. And then we'll go finish it. Okay. And I needed to mark it on this side. No, that side, that's right. Yeah. No, this side. I need to mark it on this side. I got to remember which side's going to be against the fence. So I have to be able to see my mark. So I mark it on this side, but this is my fence side. I can mark a line here. When I go to the machine, that's the side that needs to be down. All right. Almost done here. And so basically I'm just going to keep doing this for all of these machines that I have. Some, like the next one is a little easier. There's just 2 pieces of wood, so it's a little easier to do. But when you have to cut, 2 different pieces on each side, it makes it take a little bit longer. All right, we can finish this one up with a hand plane. Checking it width. Yeah, just a tiny, tiny bit off of this one, and we will be good. Now I had to be careful because this is in grain, and so you can chip out. So I'm trying to be really careful when I come in with that hand plane to make that cut. One, maybe one more pass here. 1, 2. I always say 1 and I do 2, don't I? But I think we're just going to go 1 this time. Let's check it. 1 was the right one. Well, now, see down at the bottom though, here's the thing. So this has to fit, and okay, it's good. I just got to make sure that it fits all the way from top to bottom, because that dado, that wood has to insert all the way in, and if it's nice and flush up here, but then it sticks out a little bit down below, I'm not going to get a good fit on that center divider when I'm going to put it in there. But now this one's done. So this one is a glue up and waiting. So I'm going to put it over here. I got to put its little center block of wood there with it. And then we can take this one. Now this one is a standard without a side compartment. So this one's gonna be really easy for us to clean up and to put these in. All I have to do is measure this and then really just get it finagled so that I get a nice tight fit in there. I say it'll be easy. We'll find out. I want to make sure that these sides are cleaned up. So I'm going to address that first. Like I said, it's just easier to do like this. There we go. And make sure that all of the sides are flush so that when you're doing the cleanup on the pieces we add, I'm not dealing with unlevel sides here, which I actually had that problem on another one I was doing. So I don't know which way is the right grain direction on here. Let's try it this way. Seems appropriate. There's a little bit of tiny bit of glue there, but otherwise that feels really flush. this one, which is the proper way? This way is. So we're going to come in from this side. There we go. So you can see much wider shavings on here, but that's okay. I'm just really trying to make sure that these corners feel really good and flat. And that will save me work in the end. The other thing I need to do is I want to get my vacuum out because it's already hooked up. But I'm just going to blow any remnants out of there so we don't have to deal with those when we're trying to measure and getting false measurements in here. Okay, this thing right here, I need to clean an edge. This is the screw hole from when I actually had this on my my planer sled and I screwed it into the planer sled. So there's a screw hole right there from that. But I got plenty to work with here, so I'm going to clean off. I'm going to clean it down to this edge and get it square right here. I think this is a nice, yeah, this is a very nice flat edge right here. Appears to be nice and flat. So I'm going to clean off this one edge right here because it's not a square cut on this side. And then we can start measuring and getting this all done. I'm going to put a line on here just because there's a little bit of extra wood to cut off of here. So just gives me a nice line to put over there in the saw. So let's get this done, ears again. And then we'll come back and we'll measure this and make sure that we've got the proper length or close to it. And then we'll have to really get this dialed in. All right. Ah, doggone it. Cords and hoses and all kinds of stuff. All right, so I have one nice, really square edge. I've got that burn section up here again, which I'm going to try to put that on the upward side because I know that this is my clean edge. That's my nice flat edge. This has saw marks and stuff. That's why it's black, because that was cut by the saw. So even though it's pretty flat, it's not exactly flat. So gotta watch out for that. And ew, yeah, it's raining outside. It's a rainy couple of days, so this is a good time to get in here and really get all this glue up stuff done. Because I'm not going to be out riding my bike or anything for the next few days. So, all right, let's figure out where we need to start in getting this thing put in here. Like I said, I want this to be a very tight fit, and we are. That's 5/8, which would be, was that 8, 9, 10. I'm going to cut this to 14 3/4 and then start nibbling away. It's not 14 3/4 inches, but that's where I'm going to start, and to give myself a lot of room to play with here. I think that's just the best way to go. Microphone still on? Yeah, it is. I think that's the best way to go with this, is just give myself a little extra room, and then we can finesse that fit with the saw and the hand planes as needed. Let me get my line here. We will clean up this edge, and we're going to come back and check it, and we'll just start finessing this slowly but surely. We're in no rush. There's no rush to do this. Oh, if I get it off of my chair leg, I wouldn't trip over it so much. There we go. I'm in no rush to get this done. I'd rather have it be accurate and have it take me just a little bit extra time. So let's see here. Right there. Nice and flat against there. You might want to turn my dust collection on. I think I'm going to take this the rest of the way with the hand plane. I'm really close. I'm like, I don't know, 1/28th. I mean, it's really, really close. So I'm just going to really try to get some nice flat, even cuts with this. See what we can do here. Woo, we are close. We are very, very close here. In fact, if I flex this, I might could get it in here, but oh, let's not flex. Come on. Let's just get it. Let's just get it right. All right. Now the biggest thing now is keep this flat as I cut across here. I'm trying to get this. I don't want my cut to be canted one side or the other. Oh my goodness, that is so close, so very close. I mean, like not even a human hair close. It's really, really close. All right, putting my thumb right over the top so that I can feel when I'm flat, so that I'm not tipping at all. Like that tipped a little bit. All right, try this again. Oh, oh, I think if I'd, all right, so that's pretty good. I think what I can do is, you know, I'm going to take just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit off of this as well. I mean, it's, oh, jeez. Okay, come over on this side. I'm going to take just a little bit more off. But you can see how close I am. I mean, I've got it in there. If I wanted to hammer it home, I probably could. It should be just a tiny bit smoother. Let's see if that's even here. That's pretty even, and it's still pretty tight. So let's wow. That's what I mean by finessing it in, sneaking up on it, getting closer and closer. Smooth. Let's get this one smooth. This is like 200 grit sandpaper, so it's pretty smooth. Okay, that's felt a little, there we go. Now it's going in. I mean, I can probably tap this home and then glue it or clamp it. So what I'll probably do is I will probably glue the inside wall. Instead of putting glue on here, I will glue this inside wall. I will knock this down and then clamp it forward. I think that's the strategy that I will use. Either that or I'll now I'll tell you what, it looks like I need to take just a hair off of this, not the whole thing, but more down on this end. So start it down. a little bit. Oh, look at that. It just drops right in. That's perfect. Okay. That's all it was. It just needed just a hair off of this edge right here. I could pull this back out without too much strain and pressure too. Say that. But um, I say I can. Oh, there we go. I'm not gonna put it all the way in. I'm just gonna put it partly in like that so that it doesn't get stuck. Because the other thing is, changes in humidity and stuff will totally hose me. So as it's raining and then things get more humid, the wood will swell, and then I will be stuck with a piece of wood that I can't stick in. I want to clean up this edge. I've got plenty of room to do it. I'm going to get a clean edge over here because this is my nice flat side. So I want to start with this side right here and clean off this corner. Anyway, that was interesting, but that's, I mean, that's how precise you can be using the hand tools. I can never get that way using a machine tool. Never get that amount of accuracy using a machine tool. And that's where the hand tools, that's like I said, you know, I don't use them all the time. And they do have their definite place. And that's one of them is, you know, when you need that much precision, grab a hand tool. Now, not all hand tools are going to give you that much precision. Like if I'm using a saw, there's some guys that can, man, they are really, really good. Jonathan Katz Moses cutting dovetails with a saw. That dude is like Michelangelo with a dovetail saw. But me, and I'm going to get a better cut every time using a mechanical saw or a motorized saw. So this is exactly 14 5/8, and I'm going to make this exactly not 14 5/8. No, I'm going to go. I think the last one I did was 14 3/4. I might go a little. I'm just going to go a 16th. We don't have to go too much. I'm just going to go right there. Then we're going to get this a nice clean line. I'm going to measure this again before we take it over to the saw, just to make sure that's the line that I wanted. This was 5/8. 5/8 plus a 16th. Okay. And then we will start nibbling this one down too. I got this one pretty darn close already. So, oh, yeah, that's pretty close. I might hit this with a, I mean, if you look at that, that's pretty good. Trying to think, I might take a little off of this upper edge right here, just a tiny bit off of here. See how that feels. That's pretty good right there. That's a good fit. I didn't have to work as much on this one. I'm not going to push it all the way in, but I think you can see that that is a, I'll show you from this angle. So you can see that that is a pretty good fit right up in this corner here. Sorry, tilt it a little bit. So good fit there, good fit back over to this corner. So when that's glued in, and actually, well, see, my big problem is I need multiple clamps to get that glue tension across the face here. If I get that glue tension, I'm in good shape. But if I don't get that glue tension, I'm not going to have that nice tight seam. So for me, I'm going to have to wait until that clamp monstrosity over there is a little bit more dry. We've got two that are ready to go into clamps. I've got 1, 2 that need to still be dialed in terms of their fit. So I have 2 that need to be dialed in for fit, 2 that need to be dialed in for clamps. 1 that comes out of clamps, but too many clamps. So these 2 are done and ready to go into clamps. Those 2 down there on the floor need to be cut and fit for clamps. 1 that needs to be done like that. Now, another thing I'll talk about, because I didn't show it to you, but I will show you now. So one of the other things I did when I was cutting the pieces to get those really thin strips, I had to do a couple of different things. Where is the cherry base that is, didn't I do one of these for cherry? Cut it to size yet? Hang on a second, I've lost one of my bases. Where'd it go? Oh, it's over there. I need to put this back with it. I'm like, it's the one actually in clamps. There we go. I needed to get that piece of wood with it. I don't like to hit those center sections separated because they've been cut to fit for those specific dado joints. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, so when I was cutting the wood down, milling it on both sides and then getting a flat edge and then cutting those pieces out to make these wide strips of wood, I went ahead and took the table saw and flipped the blade down to a 45-degree angle and cut some of these. So these are very long strips of wood here. And because I cut one at a 45, that means I had a 45-degree piece left. So then I turned my saw up straight, cut that piece off, and then I got basically two 45 pieces. So 2 triangular pieces here. And these are what will be used for the corners. So there you can see there's the triangles. And these are the, this is oak. Now, here's the thing. I don't need this many. This is much more than I need. I'm doing two oaks and 2 cherries. Here's the cherry ones right here. So I did the same thing with the cherry. So I needed 2 oaks, 2 cherries. I got those done. I did 2 of these. These are the hickories, so I've got 2 hickories. Now, here's the thing. For all of these bases, I need really a 12-inch long piece right here, about this much to get 4 feet. The feet are less than 2.5 inches in height. And so if you think 2.5, that's 5, another 2.5 is 10. Add, 1, 2, 3/8 to that, and you've got 10 3/8 inches. So really what I do is I figure out if I just give myself 12 inches, I'm covered. And these pieces right here, this piece is 28 inches long. That's just how long the piece of board was that I had. And anyway, that gives me enough to do almost every base. I've got, this would do four bases basically right here. I only need to do 2 bases. So I've got enough to do my 2 hickories, my 2 oaks, my 2 cherries. What I don't have is a 45-degree angle piece for my walnut, to do the corners for the walnut. I have not milled, well, have I milled it? I don't think I've milled any walnut that is thick enough yet to make corner pieces. That's the thing about doing these corners. I can't take a piece of 3/4 inch stock and get a corner piece that's big enough. The corner is just too small. So I have to get at least 7/8 and hopefully more like 1 inch on thickness so that I can get a really decent size. Like this is about as thin as I'd want to get on my corners. I want a nice decent sized corner so that when you put that machine in there, it has a nice base to sit on. So I've got to start with thicker stock. I can't just use some stuff that's already milled up and is 3/4 of an inch. That won't work. I can't use that for making corners. So I'm going to probably get a piece of walnut because I didn't have any extra that I didn't have to mill any walnut for this. I already had some pieces that were thin that I could make thin like this. So I already had some pieces that I could work with. And so I did not have to mill up any of the walnut that I got. But that being said, I'm going to have to mill up some of the walnut because I need to make corners for that one. The nice thing is that any leftover stock, like I said, I'm going to use one of these for all my bases for cherry, one of these for all my bases for oak, and one of these for all my bases for hickory. That leaves me 3 pieces left over, right? Well, I make bases on a continual basis. That's really hard to say. I make a lot of bases, and I'm always in need of corners. So instead of having to hunt around for corner stock, I'll already have a handful of corner stock ready to roll, and all I have to do is cut them to size and clean them up. Like this has saw marks on it and stuff. That's kind of ugly, but that'll clean up. Sand that off. They'll look wonderful. But I already have these ready to go, so I'll put these in my hold bin over there, and when I make more, I'll already have some done. So if I have to mill up a piece of walnut to get it sized appropriately for making 1 strip of corners, which would actually provide 2 strips of corners, that's fine because at some point in time I will make some other bases out of walnut, and then I will have stock already in hand to make the corners, and I won't have to fret about it because that's always the one thing I forget is that I need the thicker stock to do the corners. And I'm always at this junction of all my stuff's been milled down to 3/4 of an inch. Oh crap, I need to have thicker corners. I don't think about that first. I think about it second, and it's just like, So anyway, before we leave, I'm going to show you what's happening with some of the stuff that I have milled and what the plans are. This one in particular, because this is going to be hopefully a salvage job for that short base that you're looking at. But I'm going to grab a base over here and show you what I'm planning on making with it. So pardon me while I walk in front of you. All right, this right here is a 301 base, which is a base for a 301 machine. If you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. It's not important. But anyway, it takes a very specific base, and it's not very thick. You can see that the height of this is, how tall is that? Like 2 inches, 2.5 inches. So 2.5 inches tall, and the width, the length of it. Let's do the length first. So the length of this is 20 inches. All right, this is. All things in my way here. This is a piece of the the hickory that I had left over. This stuff is really pretty. It has some really super cool figure in it, which I wasn't expecting to find until I ran it through the planer and found all this really cool figure in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make one of those 301 bases with this. Now, at 2.5 inches, I've got 7 inches of stock here. So I will be basically using a little over 5 1/8 inch. It doesn't really give me a lot of leftover wood for anything else, but we'll see. But I'm going to use this wood as the two sides. I've got more than 20 inches. I've got 23 inches here. So I've got more than enough to do 2 side pieces. So that would give me 2 pieces that are at least this long. Now, here's where the salvage part comes in from the other one. These right here, the ends with handles, notice how they already have handles, right? They are wide are they? They're not as wide as my normal ones. So they are 7 and, if I can get this measured right, 7 3/8. So that is 7 3/8 inches wide. So here's where the thinking comes in, which is not my strong suit. These right here are 8 and, what is that? Well, I'm going to take it from where I actually cut it already. I already cut these. So even where I cut this, I'm going to pull it here and measure this. This is a 7 and 1, 2, 3, 4, almost 5/8. So what I can do is I can actually cut these sides out of this machine, and I can glue these into this base, or the pieces I'm going to do here. As long as I center the cut so this handle remains in the middle, just take an equal amount off of each side. I will already have handles cut in. I cut it to the width, like I cut it 2.5 inches tall here. And then I can glue this handle and this handle onto the longer boards that I'm going to make right here. And fingers crossed, that will give me all the wood I need to make a 301 base. I still will need a lid. Here's a lid. And I'm going to look to find a piece of wood that I can use for that. But if I look at, this is where it gets interesting. If I take this piece of wood right here, right, and I measure out my 20 inches, because I know that's how long it needs to be. So 20 inches. And I'm going to get my square going here, just to give a line, a reference line here. So we got the 20-inch line here. So that means my line is right here. All this wood will be used, well, almost all this wood would be used for the sides. I have this piece left over right here. This piece left over, if you look at my side piece here, is the exact dimensions I need for this lid. So it's going to be very close. I will have to like double side tape this thing down. I may not cut all the way through. I will do this on the CNC because that's how I cut these, on the CNC machine. And then I might use this side because this is really pretty. It's kind of got a half and half look to it on the end grain. So right through here. So if you see where this would kind of go half and half, so I'd have light wood and dark wood. But that being said, I have all of the pieces here to make an entire base using a donor. And then the other thing is, by the way, if I can't get the base cut out of that, I can always take one of these, resaw it, glue them together, and I'll have a piece big enough to do this with. So I'm not really worried about the lid. The lid is the least of my concerns. The most of my concern was getting these handles and these sides to match up in the correct proportions, and I have that. So that is the plan for this piece of wood. And this was the leftover hickory that I had to buy to fix the others. Now I also have a couple of I have a piece of what do I have there? Another piece of cherry. I got walnut. I've got all kinds of stuff coming up in the next month or two, because I've got some really great wood that I bought, and I showed it off on stream already. So that is not big enough. Might want to recut one of these because that doesn't seem big enough. But anyway, really cool stuff. And you know, if I survive my bikepacking trip, we will be doing some cool things. But I've got to get all these things done first, and I've got to get these back into the proper place in the rotation where they should be. This one right here is in its proper rotational state now, where I have to put this in, trim it down, flush it down, then do the lids and everything else. That's where I should have been. I should have been halfway through with these things, you know. Well, this step of putting these sides in here probably put me a week behind schedule. Easily a week behind schedule on these. I also have 5 bases sitting over there that need to be, one of them still needs to be stained. They need to be lacquered. So that's just money sitting on a shelf, not going anywhere. So I've got a lot of things going on. I just, like I said, this is the last thing in the world I needed, but I'm glad that I came up with a fix and didn't just have to throw them in the garbage heap and just, you know, say, well, you know, better luck next time. No, no, that's not acceptable. So I think getting this fix done for these was a good solution, but it is a timely solution, a time wasting solution. I don't know. Time, you tell me. It's time hungry. It takes a lot of time. So anyway, I think, what are we at? 1:15. What time did we glue those up? It was before noon. So probably this afternoon about 4 o'clock, maybe 3 o'clock. I'll check them at 3. And then get those in clamps. And then I might be able to get those out of clamps by 7 o'clock tonight, somewhere around there, and get this second one in. I have 3 ready to go into clamps, I think. 3? 2. So I can get one into clamps, get it back out by 7, get another one in, and then we can hopefully this afternoon also I'll take the time to get the other ones done. So tomorrow I can get those other 2 glued up. So hopefully I can get these 2 done and I can get those 2 done so that when we come back here on Friday, we will be back on our regularly scheduled programming. Hopefully Friday we'll be back on course. And what that means is getting those center dividers cut, glued, installed. It means routing the rabbet around the inside interior lid portion where the side compartment is. It means making the lids out of the stock that I have set on the side over there. So we have to make those, and those are all custom fit and cut. And then we have to install corners on all of them. And I still have a couple of these that I didn't finish rounding over because I was distraught when I discovered my error and didn't finish that operation. So we still have to round a couple of corners too. So I don't know that we'll get to all of that on Friday. Well, we won't get to all of that on Friday, but that's kind of our progression of where we're at on Friday. This one doesn't need too much to be finished. I got to glue this in, obviously, but then we just have to round the corners and put some we have to round these corners and then put the little triangular corners in. And this thing's ready for sanding and staining. So that's the beauty of that base. These other ones where I have to do the lids and everything else, that takes a couple of days of work time to get those done. So, but it's nice to kind of be seeing myself back on track with those. As far as my schedule goes for streaming, I will be here Friday, and I should be here next Monday, and then you won't see me the rest of that week, and the entirety of the week after that. I'll be gone. So I will be off for about a week and a half on the stream. No streams for that week and a half. And when we come back, we will hit the ground running because I'll have bills to pay. I got to pay for all this bike packing hoo-ha stuff. I got some bills to pay. And I can't pay the bills until I have stuff to sell, and I can't sell the stuff if I don't finish making it. So I need to get moving. But the nice thing is it's nothing but rain today and tomorrow, so I'm not going to be doing anything outside. I'll be inside, working in the shop, getting that stuff done. And hopefully, like I said, Friday when you come back, we will be at a point where we can just pick up and move forward without all this silly retrofitting of side panels and whatnot. So that's where we'll leave it for today. Thank you for being here for episode 80. Good God, 80 episodes. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at the calendar to see when I'll hit that magic 100 on my live stream. But anyway, it's kind of somewhere I never thought I would be. So kind of cool. But where am I? Yeah, so, okay, let's wrap this up. Have a great rest of your day. Take care of yourself. Take care of your friends, your family, you know, wear your mask, get your shots, whatever is appropriate for where you are. And come back and see me on Friday. And if you would do me a favor, smash that like and follow and subscribe and whatever is appropriate for the platform you're on. I'd really appreciate it. If not, no biggie. It's not a big deal. So thanks. See you on Friday. Take care. And there's a button here that lets me in this, and I haven't found it yet because, you know, that requires reading. Here it is. All right. Have a great day.